Welcome back, candidate. Before we go for our short break, we were just looking at an example of an essay. Remember, I've just shown you on how questions may be asked in section B, section C. Now, this is a typical example of a section C question which has been taken from one of the past papers. You'll recall, as I was doing the structure of the question paper, I have advised you to use past papers dating from 2017 up to 2021, the senior certificate. Now, it's important that when you use those past papers, you use them in relation to the examination guideline. I will tell you about past papers as we do steps in evaluating a strategy. Right, candidates, let's take a look at this example of an essay which has been adapted from one of the papers. Now, like I've indicated, I will keep on repeating to say this is a preamble whereby we are not supposed to take any information from it, make an introduction about it, make a conclusion about it, or write it in the content of your essay. You are not allowed that. This is just a preamble to show you how our essay will be based on. What are the 4 sub-questions in our essay? Now let's read the preamble together. ZM specializes in manufacturing of men's clothing. Still statement. The business is struggling to pay its creditors due to high inflation rate. ZM need to conduct strategic management process. Remember in my introduction, as I was introducing the strategic management process, I indicated that here is a business, Simpure Manufacturers, is faced with a problem of decline in profits. Therefore, the management need to sit down and conduct the strategic management process. And then in order to devise a best strategy, remember, you don't just come up with a strategy. Your strategy must be based on the problem that you have identified. But we'll talk about that more when we get to business strategies. That will assist them to overcome the challenge of macro business environment. This is just information. Now, our questions are based on what the preamble was saying. Now, the first sub question, it says outline the strategic management process. Remember, where is this outline? The outline is the one that I took from the learning objectives of this lesson. And then where is this outline coming from? Is coming from your page 9 examination guideline. That is what you must know about the strategic management process. Then explain how ZM can apply the PESTEL model to deal with the challenges of the macro environment. Now, in this case, we want you to show us how ZM can apply the PESTEL models. Remember, what are your PESTEL factors? You have P stands for, if I may ask, political, E stands for economic, S stands for social, and then T stands for technological, L stands for legal, and then E stands for environmental. Now we are given answer. Just to write political, then you will get marks. So I will take you through on how to answer an essay question and how a typical example of an essay question will be marked so that you understand. Right, fine, let's just go on. I've just erased here. And then describe 3 types of integration strategy. Now remember, all this business industrial analysis tool, your PESTEL, your Portals 5, where do they come from? We talked about them as we were doing what our strategic management process, whereby we said we analyze, we scan the environment using what? The 3 business industrial analysis tools, which are SWOT analysis, pestle analysis, Potter's 5 for a particular environment. That is important. You also need to know. Then advise ZM on the steps that should consider when evaluating a strategy. Remember, as we're doing the strategic management process, the last point in the strategic management process, it was evaluate the strategy in order to take corrective actions. Now we're going to look deeper at the steps in evaluating a strategy. Right, now let's look. Okay, this is how a question may be asked. Now let's take it further and see another way in which a question may be asked. Fine. This is also taken from one of the past papers. Now we still have outlined the strategic management process. Now what is different from this an example of an essay compared to the one that I've shown you? Here you are given, you see, you are given now the factors. These are the factors that you need to explain. Candidate, I want you to be ready for any type of question that may be asked. Now, if the question wants you to explain how the political factor poses a challenge and recommendation, you must be able to do that. If a question requires you to explain how economic factor pose a challenge, legal factor, and so forth, you must be able to do that. This is to say, prepare so that you are ready for any other type of question. So I've given you just typical examples of how a question may be asked, but then let us go on. Now here, we're looking at how to respond to an essay question, which is important, candidates. It is very, very much important to know how to respond to an essay question. Right now, your essay must have an introduction. That introduction, you must introduce your essay by using any of the 4 subtopics. You can use strategic management process, you can use defensive strategy, you can use the pestle model, and step in evaluating a strategy, because those are the subtopics that are asked in this essay question. Then let's take it further. We are done with the introduction. Then I will give you a typical example of an introduction based on our question and how it's going to be marked. Right, then now when we get to the content, I'm not saying body, I'm saying content of the essay. Please do not write the word body. You can just have it in your mind, no problem, but do not write it. Then you must have the 4 sub questions, which you normally call them subheadings. Therefore, where are they coming from? They are coming directly from the question paper. Now, we look at our question. The first one, it was strategic management process. The other one, it was types of diversification strategy, the application of pestle model, and steps in evaluating a strategy. Now, for writing these 4 sub questions or rather subtopics, you are analyzing the essay. Then you will get marks for having the 4 subheading. Then you must then explain or outline the strategic management process. In that way, we are doing what? You are synthesizing now. You are pulling the strengths together. You are putting your facts that belongs to what? Strategic management process, so that you qualify for your 2 marks for your S. I will show you as we go on. Then you have your conclusion. Now your conclusion must also be based on the 4 sub questions. That is your strategic management process, that is your business strategy, that is your pestle factors, that is your strategic evaluation. I'm not saying write an conclusion with 4 statements. I'm saying you can use any of these 4. The same principle applies to your introduction. I hope you understand, candidates. If you didn't understand, you can just WhatsApp me on 0647488913. We'll answer your question. Right. Now, let us look at how you will be marked. Now that you have your introduction, remember this is question 5. Obvious, your introduction will be 5.1. Now, for writing the word introduction, you will get L. Not only the word introduction, then you must say something under introduction that is related to the question asked. Like I have indicated, you can use any of the sub questions to introduce your essay. Now, this essay is based on business strategy. That is why our introduction says, a strategy is a course of action that the business follows to achieve its purpose. Then you get your 1 mark. Then, strategic management process. Because your essay is based on strategic management process as one of your sub question. Therefore, you can use your strategic management process is defined as a way an organization define its strategy. You see here, you are not outlining nor explaining nor describing the strategic management process, but then you are defining the strategic management process to then give the reader of your essay to say, in my essay, I'll be talking about the strategic management process, which is why the strategic management process is in the introduction of the essay. Now, what is our first subheading in the essay? It is the strategic management process, because the question required you to outline the strategic management process. Then you have your subheading that says strategic management process. Then you outline your strategic management process. Then please, when you outline, make a point that you write your statement in full. When you recommend, please make a point that you write your responses in full, which are your statement. When you discuss, when you describe, candidates, it's important that you write complete statement so that you can get your 2 marks. Now, in this case, the 2 marks is allocated at the end of the statement. Why? Because of the action verb that said outline. And where is this action verb taken from? It is taken from the examination guideline, which is what I talked about as I was giving you the objectives of this lesson. Then we're done with our first subheading. Now, let's get to the second subheading. Then we're saying what? The application of personal model to deal with the challenges in the macro environment. Where do we get this subheading? We get this subheading from the question paper. Now, what are we doing? We are analyzing our question. Now, with this one, we were not given the personal factors, because the question was saying, explain how ZM can apply. It did not say explain how ZM can apply the following. We were not given. So that's the difference. Now, for writing politically, you get your 2 marks. For writing social, you get your 2 marks. For writing technological, you get your 2 marks. Candidates, you can see how simple it is to pass business studies. But then what I want you to do is, I want you to prepare yourself in such a way that when they require you to give these factors, you are able to give them. When you are given the factors, you are also able to tell how do they pose a challenge to a business and be able also to make a recommendation. If I may ask you, by the way, I said, how do you recommend? You recommend based on the challenge. as we were doing the political factor, our challenge was a trade agreement. Then our recommendation was based on the trade agreements, where we said trade with countries that have favorable trade agreements. And then as we were doing the economic factor, we then said loans may be expensive due to high interest rate. We then said, as part of our recommendation, we then said borrow money when the interest rates are favorable. You see, so it's important that candidates, you really prepare yourself and you'll make it. Right, then other subheading was the business types of business strategies. It's important to write types of business strategies. In this case, you were not given the business strategies. They only said to you, explain types or the 3 types of integration strategies. So it's important that you know your business strategies and you know how to write them as they are in your notes. Now, for writing forward vertical integration, you get 2 marks. Writing backward vertical integration, you get 2 marks. Horizontal integration, you get 2 marks. Now, this question, it was saying describe, then the marking now, it's a split ticks. So you get a mark for effect, and then you get a mark for supporting that fact. So, which is why I said it's important that when you write complete statement so that you get all the marks. Please, candidate, don't forget that. Now, this was the content of our essay. Let's go on. Then, remember the last part in our essay, it was step in evaluating strategy. Now, when you look at this typical example of responses, then you will see that I have 4 subheadings. Now, you will get your first A on the last subheading. You already have 1 mark for writing all your 4 subheadings. And where do you get those 4 subheadings? You get the 4 subheadings in the question paper. You see, now where you are seated, you already have marks in your essay as long as you do the right thing. Remember that introduction. You wrote the word introduction, then you explained in the introduction. So is your conclusion. Then, like I have indicated, I said you can use any of the sub-questions, rather subheading, to conclude your essay. Now let us look at the conclusion of our essay. Our essay, it is concluded by the strategic management process is an integral part of the managerial accountability for senior management. Right? You can also use the pestle analysis. Business that apply pestle analysis are able to respond quickly to the external pressures and adapt to them. Then you have your 2 marks for writing a statement under introduction. Now, candidates, let's look at the marking of the introduction and the marking of the conclusion. You see, in your conclusion, you have 2 marks. And then in your introduction, you have 1 mark. Let's go back to the introduction. You see, just for giving a statement, let me just clean this for you so that you can see clearly. Good. Now, there you are with your introduction. In your introduction, you defined a strategy, then you've got 1 mark. But then with your conclusion, then you had your, let's go. I'm taking you to conclusion. Where's my conclusion now? It is coming. There we are. Good. Now, you see now with your conclusion, just for writing a statement, then you have your 2 marks. Then you've got another L. So now for your FLASO now, then that is why you see in your books when your teachers mark you, they have this FLASO. Now, let's look at our essay. Then we count all the ticks. If our ticks are more than 16 marks, then you qualify for the other A for more than 16 marks. And then of which I know you're going to get far from 16 marks. Looking at you, I see you getting total in an essay. Then you've got your other, then you already have 2 marks for analyzing, then you have 2 marks for synthesis, then you must also give examples. Please, as you give examples, don't give COVID-19 related examples. Those are not your examples. I mean, saying sanitize, we know that we should sanitize. Wear a mask, we know that we should wear a mask. It's not an example. And please, as you are giving those examples, don't take examples from the notes. You're not being original, you're just copying. Don't take examples from past papers. We are copying, we are not being original. So it's important that you are original. I will show you as we do tips on how to prepare for an examination when it comes to originality. Right, let's move candidate. Now we get into business strategies. Remember, with business strategies, business do not thumbsuck a strategy. You don't just decide that today I'm going to use defensive strategy. No, you must conduct a research. You must identify the challenges. Then you will decide your strategy based on the challenge, because the strategy has to address the challenge. You don't wake up and say, no, today I'm deciding to use a defensive strategy. Candidates, it does not work like that. Remember, you have used your 3 business industrial analysis tools. You have used your personal analysis. Then you must know, what is our challenge? Is it politically? Is it economically? Is it socially? Then you also use your Porter's 5, wherein you were analyzing your position. You did a research. Who are our competitors? Who are our buyers? What is the threat of new entrants into the market? What is the threat of substitute goods? Then you come with a strategy based on your research. Now, how many business strategies do we have, if I may just ask? Somebody saying 2, somebody saying 3. Let's see how many do we have. Right. We have integration strategy. And candidates, it's important to look at the order of these strategies. I will tell you as we go on. Then you have your intensive strategy. Then you have your diversification strategy. Then you have your defensive strategy. Upon reading the National Diagnostic Report, it came to my attention that you have a problem with this, some of you and not all of you. So it's important that you make a point that you know all your business strategies as well as your diversification strategy. Please don't confuse the diversification strategy with the defensive strategy. Then let us go on with our business strategies. Then you have the types of integration strategies. What are the types of integration strategies? Forward vertical integration, backward vertical integration, and horizontal integration. Remember, we're using these business strategies to do what? To respond to the challenges. As I was doing the strategic management process, I said select an alternative strategy to respond to the challenge. But then we did not say which strategy. So it's important that your strategy is informed by the challenge that you are faced. If you are faced with economic challenges, then we'll talk to a strategy. Then we have the types of intensive strategy. What are the types of intensive strategy? You have your market penetration, your market development, and your product development. Then we have types of defensive strategy. Then we also have types of diversification strategy. Candidates, what are you noting? Are you noting that defensive strategy is the last one? And there is a reason that why defensive strategy is the last one. Remember, as a business, like the business that I told you about, the Simpure manufacturers. Simpure manufacturers, before it can defend itself, Defensive strategy is the strategy that we use at the end after we have tried all the different types of business strategies. Right now, what are your types of diversification strategy? We have concentric diversification, horizontal diversification, and conglomerate diversification. Candidates, it's important that you know the spelling of these business strategies. You are able to write them the way they are, please. Then let's get to the types of defensive strategy. I know that defensive strategy does not give you a problem. Retrenchment, divestiture, liquidation. Now, getting to the types of diversification strategy, we're going back to the learning objective. What is that as a candidate I need to know about the business strategies? Remember the action verb which was associated with the business strategies was to describe, discuss, explain. Will I be able to do that? Now let's see. Now we're taking our forward vertical integration. Let me just throw in this. I'm throwing all the business strategies. Right, fine. Now, these are our types of integration strategies: the forward vertical integration strategy, backward vertical integration, and horizontal integration. Right, remember we have done a research when we were doing POTAS 5, where we identify who are our competitors. Then we found that competitors have power over us. Therefore, we need to come up with a strategy. Now, as a business, we need to come up with a strategy that will then address the competitors. Now, you can opt for horizontal integration, whereby we don't allow ourselves to compete with our competitors. Instead, we take control of them because we are in the same industry and then we are selling the same product. Then, in terms of the power of suppliers, because we have realized that the suppliers are powerful. Therefore, what we can do, we can apply backward vertical integration, that as a business, we combine with our suppliers. So, this is where is it coming from? It is coming from POTAS 5. Then, in terms of our distributors, now if our distributors are giving us a problem, then what we can do as a strategy, we can apply forward vertical integration, where we combine with our distributors. So we don't just come up with a strategy as a business. There is a reason that we formulate that strategy. Now, what I want to show you, candidate, is that as you explain the forward vertical integration and the backward vertical integration, there are statements which are similar. Let's look at the forward vertical integration. It says, the business combines, you see here, the business combines or take over its distributors. So it's up to you. You can say the business combined with distributors. That is your forward vertical integration, because the distributors are in front of the business. Now, if suppliers are giving us a problem and then we want to control suppliers as a business, what we can do, we can combine with our suppliers, applying which business strategy? Backward vertical integration. So that is the purpose of the business strategies, because we have done a research as we were doing POTAS 5. Right, then we have our horizontal integration. Then the business take control of other business in the same industry which produce the same goods. Those are our competitors. Right now, can I show you this? Just hang on there. Now it says here, the aim is to decrease the business dependency on the suppliers because these suppliers are powerful, like I've indicated. Now we are depending on them. Now what can we do? Let's come up with a strategy. Let's come up with a backward vertical integration. For us to decrease the dependence, let's combine with these guys. These are our suppliers. Do you get it, candidates? You can see how simple it is. Right, we're done with our integration strategies. Just to recap, please know your integration strategies. And candidates, as you read, please identify statements that will make you to remember a particular business strategies. Have your keywords, like we can use this one, the business combines. The business combines. Now, you know, with your backward vertical integration, you combine with the suppliers. Your forward vertical integration, you combine with your distributors. Then when you do horizontal integration, you take control of the business that is in the same industry offering the same product. Right, let's take another strategy. Now let's take your intensive strategy. Let's look at intensive strategy. There it is. There we are. Now, the types of intensive strategy. Now you have your market penetration, your product development, and your market development. Now, all this, they are a growth strategy. Now, when you read in your notes, you'll realize that there is a statement that says, it is a growth strategy. It is a growth strategy. So you can use those notes, but the manner in which market development and product development, although they are a growth strategy, but then the manner in which they are explained, it is not the same. Please identify keywords that makes the two types of strategies, intensive strategies, the market development and the product development, to be different. Right, fine. Now let's take a look at the market penetration. It says new products penetrate an existing market. How? At a lower price until it is well known to customers, and then the price increase. So you know, with your market penetration, you are now getting into the market with a product at a lower price so that you can attract customers because you had a challenge. Then until it is well known, and then the prices increase. Now that you have your customers, then you can then increase the customers because they are now loyal to you. Then what about the market development? It is a growth strategy where it aims at selling existing products. It's an existing product sold in a new market, because we are talking about what here? Market development. What is new here is the market. The market has developed. Then with your product development, what is new here is the product that has been modified. So that's your types of intensive strategy. Now, remember, like I said in the learning objectives, I said in terms of the strategies, you have the advantages of intensive strategy and the advantages of what? Diversification strategy. It looks like you forgot. Please always check. Right, now let's look at the advantages of the intensive strategies. What is that we are benefiting as a business when we use the intensive strategies? Increase sales. Regular sales to existing customers may increase. Gain customer loyalty through effective promotion. Eliminate competitors and dominate the market. Remember, you have the power of competitors. Then, having the power of competitors, now as a business, you need to come up with a strategy. Then you can opt for intensive strategy, because it does what? It eliminates the competitors and dominate the market price. Right, now let's get to diversification strategy. Right. Now, what are your three types of diversification strategy? You have your concentric diversification strategy, your horizontal diversification strategy, and then your conglomerate diversification. Now, learners, let's look at these three types of diversification strategies. And I'm requesting you, please don't sit for an examination if you don't know the types of business strategies. Please make a point that you know the types of business strategies. Please make a point that you know the types of business strategies, especially your diversification strategy, because we've got a tendency of confusing the diversification strategy with the defensive strategy. Here we diversify, we differentiate the product. We're not defending ourselves as a business. We are saying as a business, now that we are selling water, what is that we can add to water that is related to it, that appeals to the new customers or appeal to the existing customers, and so forth. Now, let's look at the diversification strategy. Now, when you read the explanation of the diversification strategy, you'll realize there is something very interesting that I'm seeing in the explanation of their diversification strategy. All of them, they say business add new product. I like the word product. Or service that is related to the existing product, which will appeal to new customers. Let me repeat the concentric diversification. It says, how do you explain concentric diversification? The business add new product, you see, that is related to the existing product, which appeal to new customers. You can see the word new has been used twice here. New product, new customers. Now, this new product is related to the existing product. To whom does it appeal? It appeals to new customers. Then you have your, let me clean this one for you. Good. You have your horizontal diversification. Now, what is happening during horizontal diversification? You have your business adding new product. You see this add new product, it comes again. Now I'm advising you, use the very same words. But then the manner in which you would explain at the end of the statement is going to differ. Now let's look at the horizontal diversification. It says business add new products that are unrelated. You see, if you don't want to say unrelated, you can use the word different. That are different to what? To existing products. Now, to whom do they appeal? They appeal to existing customers. You see now the word existing appears twice. Whereas with your concentric diversification, the word new appeared twice. Is new product that is related to the existing product which appeal to the new customers. Then we take horizontal diversification. Business add new products. What about this new product? They are unrelated. Unrelated to who? To the existing product. But to whom do they appeal? They appeal to the existing customers. I hope by now you got it right now. Then we take the last one, the conglomerate diversification. Now with your conglomerate diversification, what is happening? It occurs when the business wants to increase its product range because it's a diversification strategy. Now you differentiate the products that you are selling. You are not selling only one product, because we have realized that me selling only this product, then I do not get profit. It does not increase my market share. Therefore, you have to do what? To differentiate your product. You will see as we get to the advantages of diversification strategy, what is good about the diversification strategy. Now, there we are. You can see a picture now. Now you are seeing a picture of cars, but then with different trademarks, with different make. You have your Audi, you have your Savate. Then that's a type of what, if I may ask you? Yes, it is a diversification strategy, but which one? That is your concentric diversification. Now, let's see what are the advantages of diversification strategy. Now, you know what I like about this? It says it increases sale and business growth because we have differentiated the products that we are selling. It improves the business brand and image. Now, it reduces the risk of relying on one product. That is why I said to you, with your diversification strategy, we differentiate the products that we are selling so that we do not rely on one product. So candidates, these are your advantages of diversification strategy. So it's important that you know these advantages thoroughly. Now, we have tried all the business strategies. We have tried intensive strategy. We have tried integration strategy as a business. We realized that that business that I came with, that Simpure manufacturers, really can't make it. Now, what is the business supposed to do? The business must defend itself because we have tried all the business strategies, but then due to some economic conditions, we are not making it. Therefore, we need to defend ourselves as a business. Then we apply the three business strategies, the three defensive strategies, which are your what? Let's see. Diversification. Now I will explain what is happening with your diversification. We apply retrenchment. Let's see. We have tried retrenchment, then it is not working. Right. Now remember, these are business strategies. We are responding to a challenge. In this case, we are responding to which challenge, if I may ask? Thinking about it. I can see you are thinking about it. Now remember, as we were doing our pestle analysis, we had those components of pestle analysis posing a challenge to a business. Now in this case, we are responding to economic factors because we are a business that is operating in an environment. The economic conditions are such that as a business, we are no longer making profit. So things have changed. Hence, I said to you, as I was explaining the macro environment, to say it's a very dynamic environment. It's an environment that changes. As a business, you can plan to say, this is how I'm going to operate. But because of the changes in technology, they give you a challenge. The changes in economic, they give you a challenge. The changes in legal requirements, they give you a challenge. But with your defensive strategy, you are responding to economic condition. Now, you have your three types of defensive strategy. That is your divestiture. Now, what is happening with divestiture? The business is selling some assets that are no longer profitable. So it's important, candidate, to know that with diversification strategy, we are selling some assets. Now, we have sold those assets which are no longer profitable, but then still as a business, we are not making it. Then we decide to retrench employees now. We say now, let's change the number of employees because some divisions in the business are no longer operational. Then we retrench employees for operational reason. We're still not making it as a business. Then we are owing creditors. Then what else can we do? Now we then liquidate. As a business. Now, how do we then liquidate? We sell all the assets. Whereas with divestiture, we're selling some. Now with liquidation, we sell all the assets to do what? To pay creditors due to the lack of capital because we find ourselves in an unfavorable economic condition. So, candidates, it's important to know that as a business, before you close down, you need to fight. You fight by doing what? By implementing different strategies, which is why then you have your defensive strategy as the last strategy. What else can I do? Then I need to close down and pay my creditors. Right, there we go. Now we're getting to the last part of the strategic management process, which is steps in evaluating a strategy. Remember, we came up with a strategy to say we will use this strategy. So we're not going to wait until the last day to then, let's evaluate the strategy. It's important that in the main, we keep on evaluating the strategy. Now let's look at the steps in evaluating a strategy. I'm taking you to steps in evaluating a strategy. Can I have all my steps in evaluating a strategy? Just hang on, they are coming. There we go, there we go, there we go, there we go. Right, now candidates, please note, these are steps in evaluating a strategy in order to take corrective actions or measures. So these steps, they may be in any order. You don't have to crack your head to want to memorize the first step, the second step, the third step. No, the steps may be in any order. Let me warn you, in as much as I said use past papers, it is important that when you use past papers, when it comes to steps in evaluating a strategy, these steps has been revised. So don't use a past paper with a marking guideline says develop a strategy as part of steps in evaluating a strategy. We already have a strategy. Then there is no need for developing a strategy. You can't evaluate the strategy that you are still developing. Please be careful as you are using those past papers. Implement a strategy. Please take out those two facts. Use your current notes and write what is in your notes. Now, you need to look forward and backward into the implementation process. Remember, in the business that I came up with, that's in Pure Manufacturers, we said they are doing strategic management process because their objective is to increase their profit by 5% in the coming 6 months. Now, it's important that you look, where were you? Yes, in January, we were at 5%. Now it is December, we are at 3%. Therefore, it means the strategy that we have implemented, it is not working. And then you need to take corrective actions so that deviations may be corrected, because you had a standard. You set a target of increasing the profit by 5%. However, you are not. You have deviated from the standards that you have set. So it's important that you take corrective actions. Now, you also need to draw up a table for your what? For your advantage and disadvantage. We said our strategy is diversification. Now we need to come up with a table for advantage and disadvantage to compare. Is this strategy giving us more advantage as compared to disadvantages, or the disadvantages are more than the advantages? Therefore, let's review this strategy. The strategy is not working for us. You don't just sit and say, no, we have just diversified. We have added new products. Sit and relax. No, you always need to look forward and backward into the implementation process. Draw up a table for advantage and the disadvantage of the strategy that you are using. Set specific dates for control and follow up. Compare the expected results. What are your expected results? Is to increase the profits by 5%. But then when you start evaluating, you are realizing, no, my profits are not increasing. Then there is a deviation. Then what could be the reason for deviation? And you analyze those reasons. Right, then the other one, decide on the desired outcomes. Because as you are coming up with a strategy, you want to achieve certain outcomes. You are not coming up with a strategy for nothing. The desired outcome is to increase our profit by 5% in the next 6 coming months. Right now, we were on business strategies. Now we need to look how questions may be asked on business strategies. Now, let's look at 1.1.1. It says, identify business Identify business strategy represented by each statement below. 1.1.1. Candidates, it is also important to number your question according to the numbering system used in the question paper. Please don't change the numbering system. If a question in a question paper is 1.1.1, write it as 1.1.1. Right, now let's look at 1.1.1. It says, Peter Baker sold all the assets. You see now, Peter Baker sold all the assets to do what? To pay creditors and close down. Let me ask you now, which type of defensive strategy is this one? That is your what? Liquidation. Right. NTI Ltd has opened new branches in Nigeria and Chicago to increase their market share. Now also think which type of business strategy. So this is just to show you how question may be asked in and around business strategies, let alone the other ways that I have shown you. Right, the Fresh Juice Unlimited bought at Potgieter Grape Farm. Then you have the answer. Then I like this one. Let's get to 2.1. Distinguish between the product development and the market development. Discuss 3 types of defensive strategy that we have done. You may be asked, explain 2 types of integration strategy. You may also be asked, advise business on the steps in evaluating a strategy. So this is how questions may be asked in your business strategies. Now, candidates, before we close, let's take one more last chapter, that is business sectors. With your business sectors, what is that you need to know? Remember, you've got 3 business sectors. That is your primary sector, your secondary sector, and your tertiary sector. Remember, you've done this work in grade 10. And I know this work does not give you a problem. That's why I'm running quickly over it. Now, let's see. You need to know what is your primary sector and the examples of the primary sector. What is your secondary sector and the examples of the secondary sector? What is your tertiary sector and the examples of the tertiary sectors? Then let's look how question may be asked on business sectors. Now you may get a scenario wherein from that scenario you have to identify the 3 business sectors from the scenario. Then motivate your scenario by quoting, motivate your answer by quoting from the scenario. Now let's read the scenario together. Kagan manufacturer produce quality male and ladies winter jackets. Kagan manufacturers buy raw material from GTN suppliers at a reasonable price. Normal fashionable clothing buy their stock from Kagan manufacturers. You see here, you've got the manufacturer, you've got the supplier, you've got normal fashionable clothing, which renders a service. Now it's at another sector, so which you need to identify the sector in which normal operates. Let me just remove this. Now, how question may be asked, you may be required to identify the sector. When you say primary sector, why do you say primary sector? When you say tertiary sector, why do you say tertiary sector? And motivate. How do you motivate? You motivate by quoting from the scenario. As the instruction says here, motivate your answer. How? By quoting from the scenario. And please, I'm repeating again, when you quote, don't change the quotation that is in the scenario. Do not paraphrase the quotation that is in a scenario. Quote it the way it is. Then you will get your marks. And please note, we are not going to get marks for motivation if the business sector it is incorrectly identified. So it's important that you have the correct business sector. Then you can get marks for motivation, because motivation depends on the correct business sector. Don't say, no, I will just make a shortcut, I will come up with motivation. You are not going to get marks candidates for that. And then 1.2.2, you must be able to elaborate on the meaning of each business sector identified. You must be able to tell what is primary sector, what is secondary sector, and what is tertiary sector. This is one part in which questions may be asked. Let's take it to another level. Now, you have the possible challenges on this different business environment and their extent of control. So it's important that you know the challenges and classify them according to the three business environment and tell the extent of control. Is it full control? Is it limited control? Is it less control? Is it some control? And so forth. But then I will take you to an activity where you will see. Now, let's look at these possible challenges on business environment. You have change in income, contemporary legislation. You see now, if you understood your personal factors, then here it becomes simple. Because here we are talking about legislation. We are talking about the change in income level. Now think of what we did as we're doing the personal analysis, and then which business environment. Because we are using the business environment to respond to the challenges of the macro business environment. Then what is the extent of control? You have no control over the macro business environment because it's outside the business. It's unlike the micro, which is inside the business. Then, now let us look at this activity. This is just to show you, candidates, how activities may be asked. To then say, when you prepare yourself in such a way that you are able to answer any question that examiners may ask you. Now here you have a scenario where you quote 3 challenges for GTE from the scenario. Maybe let's quickly run over the scenario together. GTE could not export their products to other countries during the first lockdown period. Some of their employees stay absent from work on regular basis. Sally manufacturers delay the distribution of personal protective equipment to GTE. Now here, you need to quote the challenges. Then upon quoting those challenges, you do what? You classify those challenges according to the 3 business environment, and then you talk to extent of control. Please don't undermine business sectors. You need marks for business sectors because the marks for business sectors can make you to get distinction. So it's important that you know your business sectors. And in any way here, candidates, you can just get your total of 9 marks. Right, now, we're done with our content. We will meet next time continuing with our revision. So it's important that you know how to prepare yourselves. Although I have shown you the structure of the question paper, but then what is important is to say, how do I prepare myself to answer section A? How do I prepare myself to answer section B? So is section C. Now, let's look at the tips. Now, for your section A, it's a multiple choice question. Your 1.1, remember your section A, it has 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3. And then your section A are questions that are taken from the 5 subtopics. By the way, which are your subtopics? Legislation, business strategy, business sectors and their environment, business human resource, and quality of performance. Those are your 5 subtopics. Now, let's look at the multiple choice question. Right. Now, what is important about this multiple choice question, candidate, is that you should read the multiple choice question before choosing the correct answer. Remember, in your multiple choice question, you have a distractor. You have a distractor that may be similar to the correct answer. So it's important that as you read, you analyze, then you eliminate all that you don't need. Now it says you should also know that each option has a distractor that is almost similar to the required answer. So please be analytical. Now, let's look at an example of a multiple choice question here. Now, we have our example here. Smooth milkshakes implemented their diversification strategy when they added fruit shakes to their existing menu. Now, let's look at our distractors. Right, you find vertical, it can be vertical. Horizontal, it can be horizontal. Then it becomes your what? Your concentric diversification, because you are adding, this is smooth milkshake. What do they did? They added fruit shakes. You see the product is related. Right, fine. Now let's go to 1.2. Now on 1.2, what is important, you are required to choose the correct concept terminology from the list provided. Remember, in your question paper, you will get that list wherein you have statements to fill in, wherein you have the missing words that are taken from the list. Now, candidate, let me warn you. Please take the weight or rather the terminology from the list the way it is. Don't change it. Why should you change it? Please take the way it is and then don't abbreviate it. If it's a legislation, if it is written as Basic Conditions of Employment Act, take it the way it is and write it in your answer, because we are just copying from the list. So it's important that you do that. Then you have your 1.3, which is a matching item, wherein you have your column A and your column B. Then in your column A, you have a term or a word, and then in column B, you have a description. Now, please read the instruction. When the instruction requires you to write the letter, please write the letter as it is required in the question paper. Now, these types of questions, they require you to have a thorough knowledge of the subject, which I'm saying that it is important that you know all your 5 subtopics so that you are able to respond to section A. Now, let's look at our section B. Now, in section B, when you answer section B, it's important that you read and analyze the information presented in your source-based question. Be a statement, be a scenario, because that's where you'll get your scenarios in section B. And then you're going to get direct question. What are your direct question? It's a question like, discuss 3 types of diversification strategy. It's a direct question. Now, when you respond to this type of a question, because here the number of facts are specified, what is that they want? They want you to discuss. To discuss what? The 3 types of diversification strategy. Then you will say concentric, horizontal, and conglomerate. Those are your 3 types of. Then you explain. You explain using your notes and the guidance that I gave you as we were doing this. Then you have your indirect question. Now, what are your indirect questions? These are your source-based question, your scenario, your statement. Then what about them? It's important that you read them first. You read the scenario first. You read the scenario with understanding. It won't kill if you can read the scenario even 3 times and highlight important facts in the scenario. That will help you to answer your questions. And then please note that in section B, questions may range from easy, middle, and difficult. So it's important that as you open your question paper, please don't be taken by two first questions. It's important that when you choose question 2, read all the questions in question 2. It could be question 2.1, 2.3, 2.4, 2.5, 2.6, 2.7, and make up your mind out of what you shall have read. Now, if you read that question, then you realize that from this question, I may get 20. Then move to question 3. Then read question 3. Then you realize that in question 3, I may get 40. Then you can choose question 3. Right. Now let's go to section C. We are about to finish. This is our last. Now, in section C, remember your section C is your essay question, which is your question 5 and your question 6. Now, in question 5, you will get an essay that is coming from business environment. Remember, business environment, it has 3 subtopics. That is your legislation, business strategy, and business sectors. And then question 6, you will get an essay that is coming from business operations. Remember, your business operation, there's 2 subtopics. That is your human resource function and your quality of performance. So as you prepare yourself along those lines. Now, let's look at the instruction on section C. An essay question consists of 4 sub-questions, ranging from simple to complex, like your outline, your describe, discuss, advise, recommend. Then you must know your facts. It's important that you know your facts so that you are able to outline. If not outline, you are able to differentiate. You are also able to describe. You are also able to discuss. And then we are also able to evaluate and recommend. So it's important that you know your facts to be able to respond to these types of action verbs in section C. Right. Note, examiners usually use the above action verbs in setting an essay question. So that's something that you need to know. For you to be able to answer an essay question, you must be able to outline, differentiate, describe, evaluate, and recommend. Now, when it comes to originality candidates, you must be able to support your viewpoints with a minimum of 2 examples that are not older than 2 years, that have been well researched. Researched by who? By you. Hence, I said, as I was teaching you, to say, don't copy examples from the notes. Don't copy examples from the textbooks. Don't copy examples from the past papers. Now, if you come up with an example where you express your answer, rather your viewpoint, you will obtain 2 marks for originality. And please note, you will not be awarded marks for any COVID-19 related example. Candidates, I'm repeating again, you may not be awarded marks for any COVID-19 related example. Thank you very much for watching this lesson. I really appreciate you were a wonderful audience. Please remember to sanitize, maintain your social distance, and wear your mask. Please, candidates, start now studying. I'm aware that we are studying. Please make a point that you study according to the advice that we gave you. We're looking forward in you increasing the number of distinctions that are required in business studies. Thank you very much. Bye. See you next time.